look down on Michigan International from the Goodyear blimp, the Enterprise, from Pompano Beach, Florida. The 2-mile high bank circuit. We're still under yellow. Captain Prue Marshall flying up there today in an overcast sky now. Still a possibility of rain here, though it doesn't seem to be imminent. 54th consecutive year that a Goodyear blimp has floated so majestically over IndyCar and automobile racing in general in the United States. Now, we anticipate coming back to the green flag very shortly. And when we do, this is the situation. Michael, Mario, Rick Mears are all lined up one behind another as they come back to the green. Teo Fabi and Raul Boisel are also right behind one another, though they are one lap down. We should be able to see all of those as they come back to green, begin to engage one another as we're beginning to approach the halfway point. 250 miles in this 500-mile race. 117 laps are now complete. 250 the scheduled distance. 250 times around this track. There's Mario and Michael right behind one another, and Rick Mears first, second, and third. That is Al Unser Jr. that separates Michael from Mario. He is certainly conscious of his position, which is 7th and 2 laps off the pace, and he knows that the leaders are right there. Now the pace begins to quicken. PPG pace car maneuvers down low, sets its sights on the pit lane. It'll be Rahal that's actually in front of the field, but will focus on Michael and Mario Andretti. Michael leads the race. Little Al accelerates, gets a bit ahead of Michael as they head into the first turn now, and the Andrettis try to bottle up and get around as they begin to fight. Rick Mears is well back. He got caught behind a slower car on that restart.
Well, you know, again, the way the race was before and the way it is right now, Paul, the leaders are back in the middle of the pack. They have to go through all that traffic. Makes for a better race, but boy, sure makes it hard with the traffic problem.
The 2 cars out of the Paul Newman, Carl Haas team now battling for the lead of the race once again. As they circle this track, there they are. Little Al Unser Jr. sitting up on the high side of the course as Michael is able to work his way past. Little Al not part of this fight, but Rick Mears gets past Mario. Mears comes past Mario and picks up second.
Now Rick has said he's going to lay back a little bit today. Remember, we talked to him, said he wasn't going to let Emil drive him to death, but now halfway in the race roughly, he's got to get her up and going. It looks like he is, Paul.
There's something in Rick Mears' personality. He likes to wait for the halfway point in 500-mile races before he starts making his move. There you see his wife, Chris, urging him on. She is a wonderful person. By the way, after the Indianapolis 500, where Rick Mears was so disappointed, a big chance to win his 4th Indy, snatched away from him by mechanical failure, Chris came out to the swimming pool, cheered him and her family and everybody up.
While that fight was going on for second place, Ari Landijk was able to take advantage of a slowing Raul Boisel and get past both Boisel and Bobby. Boisel has come well off of the pace now and is not at full speed on this track. There's Mario as Michael comes down into the pits and Mario picks up the lead. This is another stop-and-go penalty. Let's go to Brian Hammond.
The reason for the stop-and-go, CART penalized Michael Andretti for a pit entrance violation. He passed under yellow coming into the pits during that last yellow flag. That's why Michael was penalized for stop-and-go penalty.
And coming out there, Bobby got his right wheels perilously close to that yellow line.
It's an awful close call. I'll bet you somebody's watching that really close, but it looks like they're going to need a traffic policeman come to the pits to do all stop-and-go.
Boy, the officials are on top of everything today.
Watching very closely, we mentioned Boisel. There he is, the 30 car. They kept the engine running. Now they shut her down as they take the cowling off. He was running in 6th place before this situation developed.
This team is based in nearby Adrian, Michigan. They're the closest thing in this race to being a home team to this track.
Boisel has really been doing a good job, and he's been pretty fast all day. He's just been off a little bit on the pit stops as far as the timing when he comes in.
Boisel's the 30 car started 22nd and was 6th when he came into the pit for this stop. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Paul, people that are really pumped up right now are these people on pit road for Rick Mears. They're very much aware of the misfortunes that have befallen the current point leader in PP IndyCar World Series points. Of course, that's Emerson Fittipaldi. But they're all pumped up about now is they know they've got to turn it around. As we watch Chris Mears in the camera, they feel now if they can run very well and win this race, they can grab momentum away from Fittipaldi's team and take it all the way to the championship. All during the day today, before the start of this race, that's all they talked about, is the fact that this had to be the turning point for Team Penske. If they could turn it around today, they could get back on the march to the top of the point standings.
Well, Rick Mears has definitely turned the wick up. He's run laps above 222 miles an hour. That's 4 miles an hour faster than he qualified. And there you see him maneuvering in the same area as Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is now running 8th, so he's beginning to sneak back up in this field, though he is still 2 laps behind Mears, the leader.
There's something, as I said, about Rick where he likes to wait to the second half of the race to really make his moves. And I think if you think of him off season, he loves to hunt. When he races, it's almost a metaphor for hunting. He waits, he finds his prey, he sets it up. That's the first half, and then he moves in for the attack.
Well, 250 miles, half of the distance, are now into the record books in this, the 9th Michigan 500. And Rick Mears is the leader. We'll be back. Back past the halfway point now at the Michigan 500. Rick Mears is the leader of the race. Works his way down the backstretch. A.J. Foyt started 25th. He was up to 6th place. Just now was assessed a black flag to bring him in on a stop-and-go penalty for a pit entry violation, as the officials are definitely becoming part of the run here and enforcing the rules vigorously in this, the Michigan 500. Mears works his way around. There's Bobby Rahal. Rahal running off the pace is running down in 14th. Let's check more on this decision by the officials and their attitude today. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, it's beginning to look a lot like the officials are calling this a lot like you would a championship basketball game, calling even the questionable fouls, not letting anything get by them. Now, Billy Camphausen is a spokesman for CART. Billy, you're really calling this one awfully tight to the vest. A lot of violations, stop and goes, but you're not letting anybody get away with anything.
So the violations are being called the way we see them, the same as we would always see them.
Now, there was some complaints by Ari Leyendijk's team that running over a plastic water bottle may not have really fallen into a pit infraction. What's CART's position?
The water bottle is part of the equipment. It shouldn't be thrown in the condition that it did, and it landed in the pit area. He ran over it with rear tires, and that is a penalty.
Like I said, it looks a lot like sometimes, you know, when a basketball player slaps another one, they call a personal foul, and sometimes they don't. You're not getting away with anything here on pit road.
Well, Bobby Unser, you got a few thousand miles on this circuit under both rules of CART and USAC before that.
Well, Paul, we've all watched a lot of water bottles. They're just plastic, and we've watched them get run over many a times. And they don't really hurt people. And I think it's a little bit questionable on why they're deciding today to pick on things quite that tight.
Jack made the point earlier that Rick Mears, who we see here now leading the race, if he could succeed today, could start to whittle away the points lead that Emerson Fittipaldi has coming into this race. Now, that lead was 40 points going into this race. You see,
you saw Rick Mears come through. We're looking back to second place, and there he is, Mario Andretti, as we take a look at this battle constantly at the front of the field.
Let's suppose Rick can win today and Emerson scores no points. That would cut the point lead in half, down to 20 points. The interesting thing is that in the past,
we've got a yellow as Bernard Jourdain lights up an engine. Turbocharger combination brings it into the pits. So we are under caution once again at 134 laps, and that should bring the leader of the race, Rick Mears, in. And indeed, he turns his car down onto pit road and into the Penske pits.
Richard Buck's team, Team Penske, for Rick Mears. They've gone to work. They're checking as if they were going to change tires from the helmet cam. You can see they've elected not to. A very quick stop as he pulls out and away past his teammate. Al Unser Sr. is also on pit road.
Interesting view from that little camera mounted on the earpiece of Richard Buck's headphones. Bernard Jourdain's car now. The Horton safety team is right there.
Boy, it sure shows you how much a pit man moves around. We couldn't really tell where the camera was half the time there.
There you see it again as he looks down to Roger Penske. And there is Michael Andretti in, again under this caution, as he makes a stop. The Zubenhan through, gives it a shove, and they're back into the run.
You notice how much easier Michael's taking off out of the pits now. He's not breaking his tires loose. He doesn't want to spin again, Paul.
So back into the action goes the 6th car of Michael Andretti. Road Handler presents the Michigan 500. We'll be back with more racing after this message and a word from our ABC station. Back at the Michigan 500 under the caution as the field rolls around and should be coming back to a green flag very shortly. Interesting tactics here. Mario Andretti is the leader. He did not stop during this caution, but his son Michael did. Now the predicted stop for Mario Andretti should be about the 155th lap. We are at the 138th lap. Ari Leyendyk made a stop, had a little bit of a problem. He locked his wheels up as he came into the pits. And the question, of course, is Michael and Mario Andretti. Michael makes a stop, protecting their position in 3rd place, while Mario, the leader of the race, is apparently going to gamble on the possibility of another caution before he would have to make a scheduled stop at 155, or that he is going to get enough of a lead running a little lighter fuel load than the others and get out far enough in front to make his stop without losing the lead, or at least losing a front position. Mario Andretti is the leader. Rick Mears is 2nd. Michael Andretti is 3rd as they come back toward the green flag. Emerson Fittipaldi, there he is, has worked his way now up and lies in 8th place. But he is still 2 laps behind the leaders. He didn't pick up any particular advantage during this caution period. Now the green flag comes out again. We watch for the front of the field as Mario Andretti will have clean air and clean sailing ahead and already begins to pull a little bit on Rick Mears. Michael Andretti battling with Emerson Fittipaldi, not for position, but Michael just to get past so that he can do battle with Rick Mears, the 2nd place runner.
Boy, and that's a hard one to get around. This ought to be a good race right here. Michael right behind Emerson Fittipaldi, or behind Al. The cars look identical, the same. You really can't see the difference until you see the numbers, Paul.
Not often you miss your own brother on the track. And he got around him, so now he is able to close up and start to fight with Rick Mears. But this will give Mario Andretti an opportunity for some laps now to run just totally flat out. And remember, he is not carrying a full fuel load. In fact, it's about halfway down. He should be able to really turn some laps. They were averaging some laps above 220 just before this caution period.
Well, we knew that they were going to be running over 220 during the race, but they certainly aren't doing it. And Mario, like you brought up just a little bit ago, opt for the clean air, get some distance between he and the other cars. Now we're going to see whether he's going to be able to put that on Rick and on his son Michael, because it's really going to be hard to make up a yellow flag stop.
We are about to, there's Roger Penske, you see him from the back. We are about to witness an exciting battle for the lead, I believe, between 2 men of very dissimilar backgrounds. Mario Andretti on the left, currently leading. Rick Mears closing in on it. Andretti's career, of course, immensely varied. Formula One, world champion, experience all through Europe. Rick Mears has concentrated on this form of racing, and more to the point, on super speedway racing, just like this.
One of the best there is, that yellow number 4 car, as he pulls down inside Mario Andretti and picks up the lead. You can't find a finer oval driver in the world than Rick Mears. His wife, Chris, Barbara Hellier, alongside the chief scorer for the Penske team, has just marked Rick Mears out in front.
Let me tell you one reason why Rick is such a good oval driver. There's A.J. Foyt in car number 14, slowing down, the 4-time Indy champion. Back to the idea of Rick Mears, why he is so good here. Because the car is in a corner for so long. Rick's exceptional ability to feel a car and how it is cornering comes into play, and he is able to make the correct adjustments during the pit stops. The shorter turns of road racing can't bring that edge that he has over the others to bear. Mario, incidentally, able to hang on in the slipstream of Rick Mears here and is not giving up.
So if Mario had any idea of pulling out a lead on Rick and protecting a possible pit stop in about 12 laps, that's certainly gone away now as Rick Mears worked his way past, picked up the lead. Mario is 2nd.
And that's pit strategy that comes from the pit. There's A.J. Foyt in the pits with obviously some sort of a serious problem because he's getting out, Paul. But Rick, or or excuse me, the deal with Mario not coming in is a pit strategy they did. They probably thought he could put some clean air between he and Rick Mears by staying out. Obviously, it didn't work out, so we're going to wonder if they don't get a yellow, whether they should have come in that last one or not.
One of the greatest drivers ever to take an IndyCar wheel in hand, A.J. Foyt, steps out of his car and away. His Michigan 500 is apparently done.
But you know,
he had a great run there for a while.
But you know, Paul, while other drivers, I think, have conceded the fact that in this day of racing, you have to really have a top team. The driver, you see Jack Starnes, AJ's crew chief there. You really have to have a terrific team behind you. And AJ, although he has Starnes and many other good men on the team, does not have the total team to put him at the front. He's got to do something about that.
Let's go to Brian.
A.J. Foyt out of the race after a tremendous run. What happened, A.J.?
Well, actually, all I've had is mechanical problems. The guys aren't got their heads together and just flat got their heads up their ass, if you want to know the truth about it.
You were running fifth today. You were running very strong early.
I know, but the car was screwed up from the first lap on. The wastegate was open and closing. I was having trouble there, and then the bearing went out. We got here, they left the fuel lines loose. It caught the car on fire. Then they leave the bella loose. They cross-thread 2 rear nuts. They're just screwed up. That's all. I need to make a change.
A.J. Foyt not happy with his crew here at Michigan. Paul?
You know, it's too bad, too, because I'm of the opinion that if A.J. Foyt would use that team and test a little bit more and spend more time in practice, he'd be up running with the likes of a Rick Mears any day.
I, too, would jump to the defense of some of his men. There's Chris.
He's had a hot spell here lately. You know, he's been going fast. There's Emo into the pits again. Foyt's had a hot streak here lately. He's really been fast in the stock cars and the IROC cars. And there he is leaving on his little bike. And he wants to race right now. I don't care how old he is. The guy is racy right now, so he needs to get his team lined up and get things where he's happy again.
And as we saw in the IROC yesterday, and we'll no doubt see again in 2 weeks when we see the final round of the 4-race IROC series, Foyt is still capable of throwing a race car around a racetrack. He is terrific.
Well, the team seems to have prepared his motor scooter quite well. It's running beautiful.
Well, maybe A.J. works on that himself. Fittipaldi still sits in the Patrick pits as he plummets now down through the standings. He had worked his way well up to about 7th, and now is falling through the standings very quickly and is 4 laps behind the leader, Rick Mears. Mears at the front of the race. Mario Andretti is in 2nd. In 3rd place is Michael Andretti. But Rick Mears, that bright yellow car out in front, does very well on the oval. It's been some time, back 1983, since he's done well on a road course. We asked him, from his point of view, the difference between ovals and road courses.
I think probably the main difference is working with the chassis. It responds more on an oval because of higher speeds and spending more time in a corner to analyze what the car is doing. I can pick out finer things in setup and aerodynamic packages on an oval than I can on a road course. A road course where you're in and out of a corner much quicker. It's a little different technique, and I think liking to deal with chassis and aerodynamics the way I do, I have more time to play with it on an oval, more time to see what the chassis is doing, to feel what the chassis is doing, and separate things and pinpoint things a little bit more accurately. Because of the length of the corner and the time you spend in it, I think that's probably the biggest difference.
200 miles left to go now in the Michigan 500. 300 miles complete for Rick Mears, the leader of the race. Look at this. This is a major overhaul they're doing on the right and rear of Emerson Fittipaldi's car. Jack Arute is right there.
Paul, we can tell you just how important points are. What they have done is they have lost a CV joint. One of the constant velocity joints, kind of like a universal joint that you would have in mine or your car. They're going to attempt to make the exchange and get back out. It'd be tough to gain points the way CART PPG IndyCar World Series points are given, but they're going to give it, as they say, the old college try. They're going to change this and get back out racing.
Well, of course, even despite the fact that he may not finish in the points at this race, Emerson Fittipaldi will leave this track still with the points lead as they work on Fittipaldi's car. Rick Mears is the leader, averaging above 218 miles an hour. Predicted with 155 laps into the record book. Mario Andretti came in for fuel. This is the conclusion of his stop now. It's gone a rather lengthy stop. Something's wrong. They need to get the engine fired back up again. They killed the engine. Let's go to Brian.
I think Mario Andretti ran out of fuel. He came coasting into the pits. They put fuel back in the car. They had to refire it. It's awfully tough to start a hot engine, but I believe Mario Andretti was out of fuel when he came in, Paul.
A 28-second stop. It did seem that he slowed a little bit early. He actually started slowing down on the approach to the third turn here. That would be a little early for someone running in the lead of the race. So Mario Andretti tried to stretch it, and it apparently didn't work for him. Michael Andretti, though, still part of the same team, but they wisely stopped Michael back when Rick Mears made his stop, so he's definitely in contact with the leader as we take a look in the pits of the Penske team. Rick Mears' crew, the leader of the race.
Mears is an inherently shy and very private person. He avoids parties. He stays in his room as much as he can in the motorhomes at the track. But when the occasion requires it, is to come out into public and make a speech. He is terrific at it and very much loved by the people that he makes contact with.
Let's go back down to the pits again, Brian Hamlin.
Well, that indeed was the problem. Mario Andretti ran the string out as long as he could. He was flat out of fuel coasting into the pits. Luckily, he made it back in. He was refueled, and now he's back.
Well, our prediction was a 155 lap stop for Mario. He took it all the way, actually crossed the line, finishing 156 when he came in. So that extra 2 miles was a little costly.
You know, when the Penske team really gets geared up halfway through a season, they can be formidable. This gap in the points that they are behind Fittipaldi may not be that big a thing. Remember, at this point exactly last year, this team, the Penske team, began their push with Danny Sullivan. He, at that point, was also down in the standing. They came back and were able to make him into last year's national champion. So this could be, we could be watching the turning point in the 1989 season here. Could be.
Well, consider the Penske team record in 500-mile races. They've won Indy 7 times, Pocono 6 times. They won this race last year, and when it was in operation twice, they won the California 500 Ontario. 16 500-mile race victories for Penske. Is this man, Roger Penske, looking at victory number 17? His car, Rick Mears, his driver, is out in front at the moment.
And so often, the wins are decided by the pit decision, by the pit people to say when to come in. We just watched Mario Andretti go down at least 1 lap. In fact, the lap plus a little bit, just because they didn't want to pit what everybody else did early. Now, it often makes you wonder why they do that.
Well, Rick Mears out in front of the Michigan 500. 162 laps are complete. He has a 2.5-second lead over Michael Andretti. Back at 150 laps. This is the summary. They were averaging 167 miles an hour. That's not nearly a record. We've seen 5 caution periods for 35 laps, and that doesn't approach the record either. But attrition is high with 12 of the 29 cars that started already out of this race. Rick Mears, of course, is the leader of the race. We'll take a look at the field after 160 laps as well. There it is at 150 laps. Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, then Michael, Teo Fabi, Derek Daly, Alan Jr., Bill Kruger continues his great run. Pruitt, Fittipaldi, Brayton, Johnny Rutherford, a former winner here, 2-time former IndyCar World Champion Bobby Rahal, Al Unser, John Jones, Jeff Wood, A.J. Foyt. It was the last car to retire from this race. Guido Dacco, Bernard Jourdain, Raul Boesel, all out of the run of the Michigan 500. And remember, too, while we're at 164 laps, we're looking back at the stats actually at 150 laps. John Cockerero, Sullivan, all these drivers out of the run. The first 2 out, of course. Steve Chassie and Rich Vogler in an accident on lap number 3. Neither driver injured in that confrontation. Rick Mears leads Michael Andretti by 2.8 seconds.
Well, he certainly is. Rick is really, really doing good. As we've talked, he's got to do good in his ovals because his road course racing has not been all that good. But you'll never find a better one in the ovals.
But guys, as we talked about all this and did the summary, Al Unser Sr., Rick's teammate, ripped by him, which is an interesting thing. Is Rick slowing up a little bit? Has Al found some extra speed? And Bobby, in response to something you said about why the men in the pits can't seem to grasp this strategy, I think you underrate how complex it is sometimes to stand down there in the pits and not see the whole track and not see everything that's going on, and to not have the years of experience that you have. And there are very few people that have that.
Well, that's very true. But it's also a big decision with these teams. They spend multi-millions of dollars. That sometimes is the trigger that makes the gun go off, is the pit decisions.
Third place car, Ari Leyendijk, being challenged by Teo Fabi. Fabi was up there trying to get at the back end of Leyendijk for just a moment. The sole fight on this circuit at the moment, as Rick Mears is still 2.5 seconds out in front of Michael Andretti. Al Unser Jr., while getting around Rick and running fast, is still 10 laps behind the leader. And Rick Mears on his last lap ran it at 220 miles an hour, so he's definitely not slowing down. We'll be back. Back at the Michigan 500, Michael Andretti running in second place. Just pulling out of the pits after a routine stop, a little over 15 seconds for Michael. The Newman Haas team, Ari Leyendijk, they just reported smoke at the back of this car, and from time to time you can see the trail of it. Ari Leyendijk was running in third place, but now has reduced speed slightly and will begin to fall backwards. The Porsche-powered machine, Teo Fabi, was chasing Ari Leyendijk at the time, and the yellow comes out as a result of that spray from Leyendijk's car. And Michael Andretti says, I really belong up ahead. I got to go catch Rick Mears. Don't put me behind the pace car.
Oh, he's really trying to sell that program, wasn't he? A little bit of time there makes a big difference on when somebody comes out of the pits. Looks like Ari has an engine problem right there.
Ari Leyendijk was running in third. Then that telltale plume of spray at the back of the car brought him into the pits. Rick Mears should be due for a stop any second now. His teammate Al Unser, who is well off the pace, 10 laps behind the lead, has rolled in past the Mears pit. There's the crew waiting, and here is Rick as he begins to down gear and slow for his pit stop, and Jack Arute is there.
Paul, Rick Mears is showing a lot of poise. Just a few laps ago, he allowed his teammate, who's about 11 laps down, to go by him. He didn't want to, he wanted to let him break the air. Now he's come onto pit road. As you take a look from the helmet cam, the work going on by Richard Buck. He has completed his work on the right front. They have changed all 4 tires. They've taken on the fuel. They dropped the jacket. Team Penske is back out on the racetrack.
But not quick enough, as Michael Andretti picked up the lead of the race as Rick came down off the jacks. And look, he comes out once again in the top spot, and Rick came out 5.2 seconds back.
Jack makes a good point, though, about why Rick let Al by him. To draft his teammate even for just a few laps could improve his fuel situation should that become critical. The Andrettis, you recall, early in the race positioned just like this and drafted each other, gaining an advantage back then.
Well, the trek is underway, and when it's done, what a remarkable accomplishment it will be. 6 men, 4,000 miles in 7 months through the summer in Antarctica. It's the Trans-Antarctica. Sam Posey is part of our coverage. It will come up again August 20th, Sunday, with a 1-hour primetime special beginning at 7 Eastern.
That's 2 weeks from now, of course, but Paul, when you said when it is finished, I wouldn't be so absolutely sure they're going to make it. You know, there's an incredible challenge to this expedition, which, if it succeeds, would be the first ever non-motorized trip across Antarctica. ABC cameras are there. Bob Beatty, you see Ari Leyendijk. Bob Beatty has been there for 3 weeks, enduring incredible temperatures and a situation which sees him almost completely out of touch with the rest of the world. We're going to be following that for several months now. It's very exciting.
Interesting scenario when they come back, because Mario is lined up just behind Michael and will try to get around onto the leader lap. It's said the only thing that changes in a big boy's life is the price of his toys. Well, if that's true, then the IndyCar set may be the winners in the end.
In the racing world, there is a compulsive fascination with anything mechanical. Motorhomes are outfitted like Cleopatra's barge. Phones, stereos, VCRs, and yes, even fax machines. This is entry-level stuff these days in the game of whose toys are best. But there is a practical side to the toys because racing people spend 6 months of the year on the road, and the toys can make the nomads feel more at home. A bedroom and a barbecue. An ice chest full of your sponsor's popsicles. Aha, fooled you. Pit equipment offers an excuse for more toys. And with luck, you might even find a friend to play with. A recent mania is for cellular phones. Talking, riding around, and showing off. All are taken for granted in this world, a world in which the instincts and impulses of childhood seem very much alive. It is a world in which kids have grown up, and so have their toys.
Some of the toys of racing, as Arie Luyendyk is now out of the pits in 7th place, but 4 laps behind the leader of the race, who is now Michael Andretti, as he tries to come up to speed so he can join the rest of the field, which is behind the pace car, already turned down on the pit road, and the green flag comes out. Mario Andretti is lined up right alongside Michael, and will Michael let Mario, his dad, back onto the lead lap? Well, he surely does. Michael's the leader of the race, but Mario gets his lap back. He's now 2 miles behind the race. Running in 3rd place, Rick Mears is in 2nd.
And all this transpired because for some reason they brought Rick just in a little bit late that last time, enabled Michael to get ahead and put Mario a little bit ahead as far as the Syria goes. And right now, Mario is back on the 2nd, or in the same lap, technically, Paul.
On board with Michael Andretti. Let's go to the pits. This report from Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, as we watch the action out on the racetrack, the report on Arie Luyendyk is it was not a blown engine. It was a small seal that connects the hose from the radiators towards the rear of the engine. It popped loose, pulled all the water out of the car. They filled it back up with water, replaced that O-ring, and he's back out on the racetrack.
So if there's no damage to the engine in the time that was out, he should continue to be able to race. But he's down in the field running 7th. Well,
at 12,000 RPM, though, there's a real good chance that damage would happen in no more than, say, a second to 2 seconds, Paul.
Another pit stop of note. You saw Emerson Fittipaldi some time ago in the pits for a replacement of a constant velocity joint. He was in the pits for 19 minutes and 5 seconds. Not your typical IndyCar pit stop.
No, it's really hard to change a CV joint, and it's so dead blur and hot, you just can't believe it down there.
Well, Rick Mears is trying to work his way down behind Al Unser and trying to catch Michael Andretti, the leader. Go ahead, Jack.
Paul, here's the deal. They normally would have just retired the car, but with attrition as high as it's been, they have calculated, they being Mo Nunn and Pat Patrick and Emerson Fittipaldi, the possibility exists, even though there's so many laps down, they could finish 12th and gain 1 single point. It could be the difference between winning and losing the World Championship this year.
Now the speeds, Paul, have been over 222 miles an hour by the leaders. That's Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, or Michael Andretti. So we're really having one of the fastest races we've ever seen. It's the yellow flags that make it look like it's going slow.
And let's try and reset the situation at the front of the field here. Michael Andretti is just in front. Rick Mears is closing down, only over a second behind Michael. Mario Andretti got around Michael on that restart and is running in front of Michael, but about 2.5 miles back in reality, about 2 miles back in 3rd place. Teo Fabi needs to get out and get around Michael so that he can continue to chase Mario Andretti as well. Those cars all running right together on the course. The 2 of them, Mario Andretti and Teo Fabi, trying to close the distance on the leader, Michael Andretti, and Rick Mears, who is in 2nd.
Now it's a yellow flag that could make a difference right now, because remember, if they have a yellow, Mario will be able to come around. He'll be then right back in the same lap and competitive or capable of winning the race again.
Notice that once again, Rick Mears has taken up station behind Al Unser Sr., who in turn is right behind Teo Fabi. Remember, Al Unser now seems to be playing a tactical role in this. Well, no, not for long. So much for that idea.
No, I don't think they're doing a team deal because Al's way too far back right now, Sam. I think it's just a deal where Rick is trying not to burn the car down. He's still got quite a few miles to go to the end. Rick, of course, is one of the fastest cars on the track, maybe the fastest right now.
One of the key players at the moment is that green and white car of Teo Fabi, as he would like to get around Michael Andretti and get his lap back, so in case of a caution period, he can close down on the third-place car of Mario Andretti, and the leaders first through fourth can all close up. Rick Mears seems, for the moment at least, content to keep station about 1.2 seconds behind the leader of the race, Michael Andretti. And there is Rick Mears as he flies down inside Teo Fabi and gets his position back. Fabi had gotten past Mears for a while there.
What they're doing right now, most of the cars, is they have two top gears, Paul. They have a top gear that's for cruising and a top gear that's for racing. And Rick is probably running in his cruising gear right now, trying to make mileage. Remember, you have fewer yellow flags the longer the race goes. So they need to make good mileage now and aim towards the latter part of the race at this point.
Teo Fabi dropping a little further back, and Val Unser got behind him as well.
You speak of gears, Bobby. Rick Mears is himself a perfect gear in the Penske machine. Drives the racing car, and that's all he does for Penske, unlike Sullivan, who has some entrepreneurial yearnings of his own.
As Rick Mears moves past, picks up the lead once again. Continued fight at the front of this field. Rick Mears battling now with Michael Andretti. And the Penske team, watch that battle go into the first turn. They're still not sure what happened there.
Now remember, Rick has to get ahead of Mario. That puts him back another lap again. Rick is probably knowing for sure he's got to get ahead of Mario, so if it goes yellow, he puts Mario still back a lap, and that's what he's trying to do right now.
Well, Michael Andretti dropped off the pace quite a bit on that last lap, only ran it at 214 miles an hour. They were both running in traffic. Rick Mears clocked the same lap at 217 miles an hour. So Rick is now definitely faster once again. On board with Bobby Rahal. Rahal is running in 11th place. He's well behind the lead as well. Just ahead up on the course, those are the leaders of the race. Rick Mears, Michael Andretti, as their fight continues.
And Rick is going to try to pass him here pretty quick. Working up on him in the turn. You can see he seems to have a little bit of turn speed on Michael.
Mario Andretti, and Rick works around Mario. Mario trying to hold on while his fingertips to that lap. And no, Rick puts him yet another lap down. So Rick Mears suddenly really lights up, picks up the pace, gets around Michael for the lead, and now puts Mario Andretti down another lap.
You can tell how hard Rick tried right there because he went clear up into the gray stuff, and that's the highest I've seen him up there all day. Roger, with his good old standard poker face, worrying clean.
Well, it may be poker face for the moment, but Roger Penske loves it. Now let's take a look at this. Coming off of 2. This was just a few seconds ago. This was the path for the lead as Rick Mears just nailed the throttle coming off the second turn and flew past Michael Andretti and out in front. Now Roger communicates on the two-way radio with his driver.
Now that's a good team planning. Roger and Rick are working together just absolutely like a husband and a wife. I mean, they're really planning that stuff out. Now most likely Rick probably ran the lower gear, ran his boots as high as it goes. Roger said, hey, you've got to get ahead of Mario to keep him down a lap.
Well, Roger Penske may look calm and reserved, but inside he's loving every minute of it. Racing is his recreation as well as a strong supporting element of his many businesses. And Roger Penske is where he loves to be with his driver Rick Mears out in front. Road Handler presents the Michigan 500. We'll be back with more racing after this message and a word from our ABC station. Third place, Mario Andretti in for a routine stop. Brian Hammonds is there.
Mario Andretti is now out of the pits after an extremely long pit stop. There was a trouble with the fuel nozzle. They were having problems with it. Finally got it out, and Mario's back out on the racetrack.
27.5 seconds for Mario Andretti as he fights the same problem trying to keep his car down below the yellow line. There's the Newman Haas crew as they bring equipment back over the wall at the end of that stop. It's their one time in the race that they have an opportunity really to shine. Mario is off the pace of the pit stop with the other drivers. He was in third and should have been able to protect third place during that stop. The rest of the drivers at the front of the order should all be coming in at about 212 to 217 laps. We are at 196 laps, approaching the 400th mile. Rick Mears is the leader of the race, and we are coming down to what should be a very, very fast run to the finish. Let's go to the pits. Jackaroo.
Well, you know, Rick Mears' hobby is golf, and on this Sunday afternoon, it might be the only time he's able to outdrive this man, Greg Norman. Greg, you've come off of the British Open, a disappointment there, but you'll be at the U.S. Open next week. I mean, the PGA next week, 18-hole coverage in Camper Lakes Golf Club outside in Illinois. As you watch this today, are there anything that you can say maybe translates over to golf? You know, maybe hand-eye coordination or just concentration?
Well, I think, Jack, it's just coordination. You know, if you get a nice smooth day running for you, if your golf swing feels good, and if the car feels good, they're going to run good. So, you know, a lot of it's patience. You can see it's a long race. The same in a golf tournament. It's a long golf tournament. You just got to wait and bide your time, and things will come good in the end.
At the British Open, a big disappointment for you. How long did it take for you to put that out of your mind and concentrate on the next event?
Well, you know, Jack, it really wasn't a disappointment. I mean, I was disappointed I didn't win, but I played great to get myself into the playoff. I shot the lowest score I ever shot in the British Open, so, you know, I feel very proud of being able to do that, and, you know, you got to really fight for it.
Now, one time, it's known that you're very well actually connected to a Nigel Mansell over in Formula One competition. In fact, at one time, there was some discussion about maybe you fielding a Formula One team or being involved. What's the draw for motor racing for Greg Norman?
Well, I've always loved cars, Jack, and I love speed. And, you know, all of my friends like Roger Penske, Jim Williams, and all the drivers around the world love to play golf. So we sort of have the same affinity for it. And, you know, I've always enjoyed it. I don't know why. I'd love to be involved with racing.
Well, you've seen Formula One competition. You've tasted CART PPG World Series competition. Which is better? Which do you like better?
Well, they're both exciting, you know. I mean, oval racing is totally different than road racing, and you know, they're both exactly the same. You've got to have your concentration and powers about it, and you know, a lot of things too as a team, and the whole team gets together and works well. So I enjoy watching both of them.
Well, we'll be enjoying watching him as well, Paul Page, next week. 18-hole coverage right here on ABC. He'll be one of the strong suitors for the PGA.
That's right, Jack. Greg Norman, the 1986 British Open champion at Turnberry. Don't forget, we'll give you live 18-hole coverage of the third and fourth rounds of the PGA Championship with a crash here. Two cars. Bill Kruger up on the high side.
And
the yellow comes out. John Jones is the car down on the low
Canadian.
side. Rescue vehicles are right there. Kruger is stopped in the center of the track. The yellow comes out. John Jones climbs out of his car. And Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, comes in. Rick Mears' crew waits for him as well, taking advantage of this yellow, which, of course, will change the tactics for the end of the race. We have just 98 miles to go. Rescue crews over at Kruger's car as John Jones walks away, obviously uninjured. One of the safety crew chases him down, wants to make sure that he's absolutely okay. A disappointed John Jones after that accident. The yellow flag out. Let's take a look again.
Obviously, one of the cars spun, Paul, and the other one just got trapped into getting into it. That's what was really close. Now, that was good driving to go in between the tire and the car.
Let's go to the pits and Jack.
Well, it looks to be a routine stop for Rick Mears. Under the luxury of the caution, Richard Buck and the team of Team Penske have adjusted the left front wing just a little bit, and they've sent him back out onto the racetrack. A good stop for this team.
So Rick Mears, the leader of the race, with the caution, comes in, makes his stop, and rolls out of the pits. But there is the very real possibility he'll give up the lead. We'll be back. Back at the Michigan 500, 204 laps of the 250 schedule now complete. We're looking at the 44 car of Phil Kruger. He is still in the car. The Horton safety team, doctors, firemen, rescue personnel, paramedics, all crowded around the car in a precise drill that is often rehearsed. They have the jaws of life available if they need to cut Phil out of the car. They're taking their time and working with him. There is no indication as to what his condition might be. We don't yet have a report from the track itself. He was involved in a crash against the outside wall with John Jones. Jones climbed out of his car and walked away. Well, naturally, the caution flag is out as the field strings around. Now, the Indy cars routinely hit concrete walls at better than 200 miles an hour. The driver climbs out more often than not and waves at the crowd and walks away. These are the safest cars in the world. Jack Arute looks at why.
When Ray Haroon captured the first Indianapolis 500, the cars reflected the automobile industry at the time. The Marmon Wasp, like its contemporaries, was a relatively new invention, and the concentration was upon ensuring that the car would stand the test of 500 miles. Safety was a low priority. Because the cars were primitive, more times than not, they failed. As the sport evolved, so did the cars. By the early 1950s, competitors were at the controls of an Indy Roadster, a vehicle built specifically for the rigors of Indianapolis. Simply put, the Indy Roadsters were iron cars for iron men. They were bulky and built high off the ground. These monsters were welded together with enough steel to absorb the hardest of impacts. In a crash, the cars would spin, turn, toss about, and tumble. By the mid-70s, engines had moved to the rear and cars were built lower to the ground. Side pods and aerodynamic tunnels were added for stability, as well as a wing. The key was to provide an envelope of survivability for the driver. Cars were specially designed to disintegrate in a crash, taking with each detached part a portion of the crash's energy. The concept, though, was still in its infant state, and while drivers would often survive, their bodies would still take a terrible beating. As we approach the 21st century, safety plays an equal role with speed. Modern engineers have incorporated space-age materials into their car designs. Driver positioning has been refined, so they're encapsulated in an area called the tub. With the advent of these innovations, a crash at 225 miles per hour makes one gasp. But thanks to high-tech computer design methods and electronic wizardry, drivers can now, more often than not, walk away to race another day.
The Horton safety team still working at Phil Kruger's car. Phil was running 8th. He started 28th, so he was having a marvelous run.
His best finish ever in IndyCar racing was a 5th here last year.
So we're under caution at the Michigan 500. Michael Andretti has the lead behind the pace car. Rick Mears is right behind him. We'll be back right after this. We're back at the Michigan 500. Phil Kruger is still in his broken race car, sitting just off the exit of the second turn. And they continue to work with him, taking their time, being very, very careful, because so often in the olden days of racing, you just run over and snatch a driver out of the car and injure him more than he actually was injured in the accident. You look down from the Goodyear blimp riding overhead, giving another view of this accident.
Phil Kruger. Kruger is a gentle, very special man who used to work as a chef in a restaurant in Newport Beach, and then a passion for racing led him to become a mechanic so that he could get closer to it. But what he really wanted to do, has wanted to do all along, is to be a driver. He's had a real up and down career, always at the tail end of the field in these races. I believe he's a man of immense ability, and I certainly hope that he has not again been hurt, because he's been hurt a couple of times seriously in cars.
Well, he needs Les Richter down there. I said like that one time, Sam, and Les Richter is so big and strong, being the next big football player tackle, just reached down and grabbed me by the shoulders and gently lifted me out like a crane doing it. And I think that's what Phil needs right there.
And of course, they're being careful because you don't know what structure on the race car might be closed in around his feet or parts of his body. You see the field now very slowly moving past. No indication now of the condition of Phil Kruger, though obviously at first they were talking with him, and they have been doing their best to get him out of that car. The crew's all still right there with him. The Michigan 500 has had a punctuated past with a number of serious accidents. These high-banked oval here has taken its toll on race cars throughout the 9-year history of this race. In 1981, the inaugural race was rain delayed a week. The green flag fell on one of the fastest 500 race fields. But as the pit stop started, Herm Johnson's car and then pit erupted in flames. The race was stopped for 2 hours. There were no serious injuries. A.J. Foyt slammed the wall and was airlifted out of the track with a shattered right arm. Pancho Carter scored his first and only IndyCar win 6 hours after the race started. In 1982, A.J. Foyt was back, only to tangle with Hector Rabake. To everyone's surprise, neither driver was injured, but the drivers began to report the tremendous physical and mental toll taken by the run on the high banks. The pole sitter, Mario Andretti, started last after destroying his car in practice. He finished second behind winner Gordon Johncock, making it a sweep for the top 2 spots for the hometown owner, Pat Patrick. In 1983, the stress on man and machine continued. The defending champion, Gordon Johncock, crashed heavily with Kevin Cogan. Johncock suffered broken legs, but kept a brave punt. On the last lap, Rick Mears was leading, being chased by rookie John Paul Jr. Paul pushed past Mears, and as he did, spoiled the air to Rick's wing, sending Mears to the wall, along with Chris Neifel. John Paul Jr. scored his only IndyCar win in a race that saw 25 lead changes among 11 drivers. 1984 may have been the most costly IndyCar race ever. Early in the run, Phil Kruger crashed, destroying his car. Gary Bentonhausen tangled with Howdy Holmes. One car literally spinning on top of the other. Both drivers walked away. Coming off of turn 2, Chip Ganassi taking Al Unser Jr. to the inside fence in a frightening crash. On the last lap, Pancho Carter flipped down the backstretch. As he hit the guardrail, he cut 12-inch posts off at the base. When the car finally came to a rest, the former champion was not injured. Mario Andretti took the win of the race after 22 lead changes between 11 drivers. '85 saw caution flags fly 13 times for 104 laps. The backstretch claimed another victim as Danny Angaya slipped several hundred yards. Mario Andretti slammed the wall in the first accident of his career that would cause him to miss a later race. He would be replaced in the cockpit by Formula One ace Alan Jones. Emerson Fittipaldi held on to score his first IndyCar win. Rick Mears set the current track record at 223 miles an hour in 1986 to sit on the pole. Roberto Guerrero crashed, and Mario Andretti caught fire. It was Johnny Rutherford that took the win. In '87, Mario Andretti put 5 miles on the rest of the field only to have his engine fail and give way to his son Michael. The Andretti family led 247 of the 250 laps, the fastest IndyCar 500 to that date at 171 mile an hour average. The morning of the 1988 race, Danny Sullivan had the flu. Derek Daly caught the wall hard. But despite his illness, Sullivan scored Roger Penske's first win at his own 500. The race was 180.6 mile an hour and is the record for the fastest 500 ever.
Well, here on pit road, we are still under caution here at MIS, but a lot has happened right behind me here in Team Penske. Approximately 45 seconds ago, Roger Penske signed a statement and filed it with Chuck Sprague. He instructed Chuck to take money and the statement to CART PPG IndyCar officials and file an official protest concerning the running of this race. What it revolves around is a discrepancy as to whether Mario and Michael Andretti legally passed Rick Mears on the exit of pit road. Just to cover his bases, he's filed the protest in advance just so that they can discuss it afterwards and have it all ready in the record book that he doesn't like what's going on. They did talk to CART PPG IndyCar officials for approximately 5 minutes during this caution, and seemingly not to Roger Penske's satisfaction, he's gone ahead to file the protest. Let's check in with Brian Hammonds, who has information on John Jones.
Jack, I'm with John Jones, who just left the Horton Medical Unit. First of all, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's, you know, just one of those things. I was running high, and I seen Phil coming up, and, you know, I expect him to go down low like everyone else was letting him, and he just, you know, hit the back nine, and spun around and hit the wall. I'm fine. I think he's in worse condition than I am, so hopefully he'll be all right.
All right, John Jones, he's okay. Paul?
All right, well, John Jones out of his car, no problem. He climbed out immediately. But Phil Kruger, you see he is on the stretcher being loaded into the ambulance here at Michigan International. He was involved in accidents in the Michigan 500 in both 1984 and 1985, and now again with this situation here. We certainly wish the best for Phil Kruger, and we'll try and give you an update on his condition just as soon as the CART officials and the Horton safety team report it to us. The last thing that you want to do at this point is to speculate on what his condition might be. Now let's consider this situation with Rick Mears and the protest that Jack Arute just described to you. And here is Rick as he came off of the pit stop, Bobby Unser. Now, as he's coming out, it is Michael Andretti that is closing on the main stretch. There's the line. At that point, now look, watch, here comes Michael at the right of your screen. That's Michael. Now the assumption, Bobby Unser, that Penske is making, and that seems to be backed up, though you don't actually see the meeting at the line, is that Rick Mears got to that line before Michael Andretti did.
And what's going to happen, Paul, is Rick has a radio right to Roger Penske. Rick will have been right. He will have been knowing exactly what happened there, and Michael actually was behind him. And what happened is I think CART thinks that Mario, who was ahead of the other white car.
Well, is that Mears well ahead at this point there from the onboard camera, Bobby?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's the reason Penske would never file a protest, as he did, without Rick telling him by radio that he was right. And Penske will go all the way with that, I promise.
Well, the officials seem to have been heavily involved in this particular run here. And in that situation, it certainly looks from Michael Andretti's onboard camera as if Michael was well behind Rick Mears when Rick came out of the pits, and that's the reason that Roger Penske decided to file that protest that Jack Arute reported on.
I think it's just a simple thing that it was a white car and just CART got mixed up that way is what it looks like.
Well, Mario was just ahead there. Let's go down to Jack again.
Well, Paul, not only did Roger Penske talk to Rick Mears, but CART officials talked to Rick Mears. When they came over and they were in the middle of the discussion, Roger Penske took his headset radio off and said, here, you talk directly to Rick. Let Rick explain to you what occurred. It still was not to CART's satisfaction. That's when Roger decided to make the protest.
All right, well, we've seen it from the onboard camera. We look at it again. This is a camera located on the top of the grandstand, almost over the start-finish line. Now, that's Mario. That's the first white car. He has a bright red number. Now, here comes Rick. Now, watch the right of the screen, and there comes Michael. Now, that would give you to believe that Rick was well ahead when they hit the line. Now the question is also resolved by the other shot from Michael's own onboard camera. It appears that Michael got to the line behind Rick, and therefore Rick Mears should be in front of the field when they come back to green.
Well, Penske's and Rick's going to be right on this thing. The only thing is how do you undo something this important after the race is over?
Roger Penske still concerned. Road Handler presents the Michigan 500. We'll be back with more racing after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Back live at Michigan International Speedway, still under the caution. You look down from the Goodyear Blimp Enterprise based out of Pompano Beach, Florida. Brew Marshall is the captain at the controls. Goodyear continues 54 years of consecutive coverage of auto racing in the United States. It has given us some revealing shots of the Phil Kruger, John Jones accident. And now we take a look down. Well, that's where they're working with Phil Kruger right now, the Horton safety team. Highly equipped vehicles ready to handle just this kind of situation. We continue to be concerned concerned about the condition of Phil Kruger. We'll try and update it just as soon as we can. With 215 laps complete, let's look down through the entire field. Controversy with first and second place. Mario Andretti is well behind. Al Unser Jr., Teo Fabi, all well off the lead of this race. Derek Daly, Lyondike, Creighton, Johnny Rutherford, former winner here. Al Unser back at 10th place, 10 laps behind. Bobby Rahal, Jeff Wood, Guido Dacco, and Emerson Fittipaldi. Those are the cars running. John Jones just out as a result of that accident with Phil Kruger. Scott Pruitt, A.J. Foyt, Bernard Jourdain, Raul Boisel, all out of the run here. Gordon Johncock, Roberto Guerrero, Danny Sullivan, John Andretti, Kevin Kogan. And the final four of the 29 that started: Carter, Lewis, Chassis, and Vogler. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
Let's update you on the protest here. You can see the work is continuing. Chuck Sprague took it to the scoring stand, and the scoring stand says it has to go to Bill Camphausen or to Kirk Russell. It is now being handed. You can see the money being handed to Kirk Russell. To Billy Camphausen. Roger Penske involved. It's a $100 filing fee that's necessary to protest an event. They've acknowledged it, but so far Sprague still has it in his hand and no money is exchanged. But I think it's pretty much a moot point. They know that the protest has been filed. Now, one of the things that we want to update you as well is whether Rick Mears will pit or not, and can he go the distance. Through the use of computers, here's what they've decided here on Team Penske's pit. They actually are finding that they're getting 2 miles to the gallon under green flag conditions and a whopping 8 miles to the gallon under caution. This extensive caution period has allowed them to possibly make a gamble and try and go right to the checkered flag without making another pit stop. Let's go back up to you.
Well, Mario Andretti decided not to take the chance as the tactics being played in the Newman-Haas organization as well. As Mario came in and topped the tank off, there is little or no question that he should be able to go to the end of the race now. No question whatsoever. The question will remain with Rick Mears and Michael Andretti.
That was a good gamble for Mario to come on in because he had nothing to gain. He's 2 laps behind Rick and Michael. So if he comes in and pits now, he knows he's going to make it to the end. And if they have some problems, hey, he's going to be there, Paul.
217 laps are now complete. 250 laps. The scheduled distance, 500 miles.
But Mario has been continually outpaced all season by his son, Michael. It's been a frustrating year for Mario, and really events in the last few minutes have not done much to turn that around. The interesting thing, though, it hasn't depressed him. If anything, he's been proud of the way Michael has performed, and Mario, so far, I think, thinks the team is having a pretty good season.
Well, 2 weeks from today on ABC Sports, that final, the 4th round of the International Race of Champions. Who will come away as the champion for 1989? We saw yesterday a terrific run. Terry Labonte picking up the points lead. Will he be able to maintain that lead? He's an expert on road courses, and that's just exactly what Watkins Glen is. Sunday, August 20th, the final round of the International Race of Champions. Michael Andretti, the leader of the race. Will he be the winner? What will the effect of the decision made by the officials in regard to the leaders make when they come around at the final lap and the checkered flag comes out? Michael Andretti, well, of course, he comes from a great racing heritage, a great Italian-American family. Well, we asked him, Michael, what are you most proud of?
Having a good, solid family foundation, I think, I'm awful proud of, and it's something that I have a place to go home, and when I'm home, I'm home. I'm proud of that. I'm not one that's, I live out of a suitcase all year and I'm all over. I don't really have a home, but I do, and I have a great family. And, I'm also happy that I've been able to stay very close with my father and keep that family part of it too. It's just, that's what I'm proud of.
Michael Andretti, will he be in just a few laps the first driver in the history of the Michigan 500 to repeat? He won here 2 years ago. That little piece of tape on the top of his helmet that helps keep the helmet upright and aerodynamically sound keeps him from being buffeted around in the car. It seems to be giving him a little bit of luck as well. Certainly some luck when they caught that blend line in the last set of pit stops.
It's really a case of the hunted and the hunter, and the hunter is driving the yellow car right now.
Well, Bobby Unser, if you were sitting in Michael Andretti's position or in Rick Mears, you knew that you didn't stop for fuel. Would it be a concern to you, and what would be your plan when you came back to the green?
Well, their game plan is just flat out all the way. They don't have any choice. This is going to be the real big shoot-off, or the shootout that we've been looking for all day. It's going to be just raw speed all the way to the checkered flag. If they do run out of fuel for some reason, that's the way the chips are going to fly. But I don't think either one of them are going to run out. I think it's going to be one heck of a fast race.
All right, Rick Mears says the trick to a restart is pacing yourself in the third turn. That's where they are now. As they begin to pick up the pace, Rick hopes to have the momentum to get by Michael as they come toward the green flag. The green flag is out with just over 60 miles to go. We are now racing. Rick Mears moves down to the inside, gets past Michael Andretti, and Rick Mears picks up the lead. Michael drops in behind, but Michael moves down to the inside to try and challenge Mears as they continue to fight. Coming off of the second turn now. Rick Mears with Michael Andretti tucked in right behind on the backstretch. Michael picks up the advantage of the draft. On board with Michael as Michael Andretti moves past. About 58 miles to go now in the 500-mile run at Michigan as Michael Andretti is back in front.
Very often in the latter part of the Michigan 500, we see racing just like this. Now again, we've got a Lola against a Penske and two fast cars. They're really hot on it.
Rick Mears chasing Michael Andretti now. For a moment, he was passed and out in front.
Rick just absolutely foresaw the start, beat Michael on the start, but boy, it woke Michael up and he come back strong.
Rick Mears, an expert at pacing back to the green flag, knows how to get past, and he certainly got by there. Let's go to the pits.
Well, the question is, does Michael Andretti have enough fuel to make it to the finish? One of the crew members just ran by and said, come on, guys, stay up. There's still a long way left. They don't know if they have enough fuel to finish this race, but I think they're going to go for it, Paul.
Well, the officials have definitely had an impact. Chris Mears continues to time her husband, now in second place behind Michael. The fuel may yet be a factor. It really should be a sprint to the finish. Mario Andretti, what may prove to be a wise move, came in and topped off the tank on his car. Right now, it's Michael Andretti, Rick Mears. They are on the same lap. Teo Bobby runs in third, then Al Unser Jr. And with his stop, Mario dropped back to fifth.
There's a real good chance that Rick is saving just a little bit last. Fuel may be a little bit more of a problem here than everybody's knowing right now. And it could have been that Rick popped that higher gear, shifted a little bit to go into the cruise mode to save a little fuel and save a little speed maybe for the last 5 laps, Paul.
Well, Roger Penske is on his feet as he watches this race. And I'm going to tell you something else. Everybody in the main grandstand all along the front stretch, they're on their feet as they watch these, the closing laps of the Michigan 500. Michael Andretti flashes across the line. Rick Mears continues his pursuit just behind. Roger Penske holds his breath as they go past. The leader, Michael Andretti. Let's ride with him and watch. Above 12,000 RPM. Roger Penske watches.
You can see by watching Michael's in-car cam how well his car's handling. He has very little steering wheel movement. You see his hands, hardly any movement to them, just a little bit of vibration. He's really, really handling good right now.
Michael Andretti completes 226 laps of the 250 lap scheduled distance of the Michigan 500. He's out in front. We'll be back. Back at the Michigan 500 with 20 laps to go now. 40 miles left in the distance to be run. A long, hard day once again. The Michigan 500 continues to be a remarkable event. Right now it is this Pennzoil car of Rick Mears as he chases Michael Andretti. Will Michael be the first two-time winner of the Michigan 500, or will Rick Mears score his first victory? These laps are unraveling at blistering speed. They've been running right up at 220 miles an hour as Rick Mears makes the try once again. He's down inside and alongside Michael. Pushes his way past in the second turn. Solidifies the lead coming off of 2.
That was a 217-mile-an-hour lap Paul, which means we both know they can run faster, and that means they're both trying to save a little bit of fuel. So the racing's not over by a long ways yet.
Of course, Bobby Unser, these cars are getting very light as well as they burn their fuel load down. The weight of the car changes over 280 pounds as it goes from full tank down to empty.
Certainly does, Paul, and they get faster as they get empty. So we know they can run a little bit faster than that. It might be Rick just shifting down into his go gear now from his cruise gear.
Rick Mears' wife, Chris Mears, on the two-way radio, talks to her husband as they come to the backstretch again. Michael Andretti is in pursuit. Michael Andretti chases Rick Mears across the stripe once again. 233 laps are complete. Shades of the Indianapolis 500. Two great drivers as they chase one another around this track. Let's get an update now, though, on the condition of Phil Kruger. Here's Jack Arrow.
Well, we checked at the Horton Medical Center with the officials of CART, and here's what they have told us on Phil Kruger. He is being airlifted from here to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and the McCauley Medical Center. When quizzed as to whether Phil Kruger was conscious or unconscious, they refused to answer those questions and said all they could tell us at this time is that he is being transferred to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to the McCauley Medical Center, Paul.
Not necessarily the report that we had hoped for on Phil Kruger. I really wish it could be more detailed than that. That's an excellent medical center. It's only about 15 minutes away by air here. They are bypassing a local hospital in Jackson to go direct to that medical center service. We'll continue to strive to get answers from CART so that we can tell you the situation with regard to Phil Kruger. Now the situation. Rick Mears is out in front of Michael Andretti. These are the only two cars running together on the course right now. Third place is Teo Bobby. He is 3 laps or 6 miles behind this battle for the lead here in the Newman Haas pit. They continue to worry and work their car around the track. Both crews have to concern themselves with fuel. They are both stretching their fuel tanks to the limit, though they picked up a tremendous advantage with the long caution period for the Phil Kruger-John Jones accident.
You just remember, Paul, they're both on the same lap. They're both in similar situations where they're fuel. So they just really have nothing to do but gamble for it and go for it. And remember, they have 3 laps or at least 2 laps on the next car behind them. So the worst they could do is still finish where they are.
Well, so far, Rick Mears has proven that he is very capable. He has a lap in the record book at 222.7 miles an hour. The only man that has been faster is Emerson Fittipaldi, who has been above 223. But Fittipaldi is not in this fight. It is strictly between Michael and Rick Mears.
Ed Nathan of Michael Andretti's team. Chris Bowen.
26 miles to go. Situation that we saw at the conclusion of the Indianapolis 500. There it was Emerson Fittipaldi chasing Al Unser Jr. Down to 2 laps to go before they touched. As they come to the backstretch off of 2 as Mears slows down. Michael Andretti picks up the lead. Rick Mears, perhaps what Chris was reacting to was something that Rick said even before the car slowed. As Rick Mears is slowing on the course, the question is fuel. Rick Mears, that bright yellow car, slowing as Michael Andretti comes across the stripe and picks up the lead officially.
And keep another thing in mind. Michael still may have a problem himself. We assume that Rick has a fuel problem, just ran out of fuel. We're not too
is there.
Well, Rick Mears has pulled the car. It is still running. They're not filling it with fuel. They're in the back of the car where it looks as if it could be maybe a CV joint, but the yellow flag has been displayed, which is a break for them. They are still looking over the back of the car, trying to determine what the problem is. Obviously, yes. It looks like it must be a constant velocity joint. He has turned it off.
So the engine goes off on Rick Mears' car as the yellow flag comes out. Michael Andretti is the leader of the race, and no indication as to why the yellow may have been turned on. The equipment rolls on the course. And in the Newman Haas pits, now what will be the decision? Will they bring Michael in and top him off on fuel and not take a chance? He passes the pit lane there with 16 miles to go.
Ryan,
what would you do, Bobby?
Well, remember, he'll double or possibly triple his mileage under a yellow flag. So this totally changes it, and the guys in there will really be thinking quick. My guess is they'll probably leave him out if they think it's going to be a long yellow.
Let's go to the pits and Brian Hammond.
Well, Michael Andretti is not going to pit under this yellow flag. You can conserve fuel, obviously, under a yellow, but they're not going to come in. They're going to stay on the racetrack and go for the finish. Paul?
Michael Andretti on the backstretch. Does he now have this race wrapped up? Rick Mears with something more than fuel and something that apparently he was able to report as he went past on his two-way radio back to his pit. And Phil Kruger being loaded into the ambulance helicopter here just outside the medical facility at Michigan International for the short flight over to Ann Arbor, the medical center there. And we will continue to strive to get information on Phil Kruger's condition. As yet, it has not been passed to us by the medical officials here or by CART. Report on the yellow is a result of an engine that let go on Scott Brayton's machine. And they wanted to make sure that the course was perfectly safe to run on, no oil laid down. And they should be able to go back to green flag racing very quickly.
The kind of thing that just happened to Rick Mears is what has been happening to Michael Andretti so far this year. And as we have a look right here, you will see that sudden movement by Rick Mears' car, which signals the braking of that CV joint. He did a beautiful job to keep the car under control, because what in effect happens when a CV joint breaks is that suddenly all of your power is being transmitted to only one of the rear wheels. Watch it, there it is. He did a beautiful job keeping the car under control. You see how close he got to the outside of the racing line.
More than beautiful. I'd say incredible. At that kind of speed, when that CV joint lets go, it's lucky the whole corner of the car wasn't cut loose.
Well, it probably became just a big vibration. He moved right out of the way is what he did, Paul.
All right, let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, originally they thought it was a CV joint. And then when they tried to restart the car, they decided that actually what had occurred is that it was a suspension problem, because the drive is still back to both rear wheels. So Rick Mears is back out on the racetrack, but catching up with Dr. David Crippen, who is with the CART R10 PPG IndyCar safety team. Can you give us an update report on Phil Kruger, Dr. Crippen?
Well, he was involved in a substantial injury. He was unconscious at the scene, and so we stabilized his airway, brought him back to the Horton Center, where we evaluated him, and he has chest injuries. We placed a chest tube to evacuate some blood. We intubated him to protect his airway, but as of about 5 minutes ago, he was moving appropriately to painful stimuli and moving all his extremities.
Was he conscious?
He was coming around slowly, but he was not conscious at the time. So I think that all things considered, could be worse, and but we'd call his condition critical, but I don't see anything right off the top that looks fatal, so I think that he's got a good chance of coming around.
Well, that's good news. We've gone back to green flag racing, and Phil Kruger is on his way to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Gentlemen?
Our prayers will certainly ride with one of the finest young men in the sport, Phil Kruger, as he is now on board the helicopter on his way over to Ann Arbor. On board with Al Unser Jr., the third-place car at this moment. And Michael Andretti is the leader of the race. Mario Andretti is just behind Little Al, running in fourth place. So this is a fight for third right here. There's Teo Fabi. Fabi is the second-place car. And Little Al showing some spray at the back of his car. Is this another turbocharger engine?
You wonder why Michigan produces this kind of race year in and year out. It's two-thirds of the way through the season. you wonder, do the cars, do the mechanics somehow tire out? It's an amazing fact of history that this race produces this rash of breakdowns year in and year out.
It might just be how tough this particular track for 500 miles is on cars.
It is. We said earlier, it's cool today and it's been good to them, but normally it's hot day. It really is hard on the cars, the tires, the equipment, the driver. This is just a tough race. So when the guy wins this one, he really has to be a proud person.
Michael Andretti out in front of this race. Teo Fabi sits back in second place. And then the fight for third between Little Al and Mario, for the most part broken off now, as Little Al displayed vapor at the back of the car. 6 miles to go. There they are. Mario is just in front of Little Al now. Little Al is not giving up yet.
Well, remember, he has some sort of a problem. He's definitely spraying something out the back of the car. He can't last very long at that. Now, it could be slowing down a little bit because he realizes the problem, Paul.
But this is the battle for third place, so it is significant. 2 cars that have had their troubles during the day, but have wound up locked in a battle with just a few laps to go.
Back with the leader, Michael Andretti. He is on the backstretch now, heading for turn number 3, well out in front of the second place car, the Porsche powered march of Teo Fabi. There is Fabi as he maneuvers around this course. Mario Andretti trying to close down on Fabi. The white flag comes out for Michael Andretti. Will he be the first repeat winner of the Michigan 500? Al Unser Jr. falls a little further behind as Michael Andretti comes off of the second turn. Michael Andretti working his last lap. Mario Andretti trying to catch up to Teo Fabi. On the final lap now for Michael Andretti, the last pass down the backstretch. Heads into turn 3. That bright white Haviland machine working its way around this track off of the 4th turn. There is Michael as he screams toward the line. The twin checkered flags are out, and Michael Andretti has scored a repeat win, the first driver ever to do so in the Michigan 500. We watch the fight for second place. It's on the backstretch. Teo Fabi is in second. That is Mario Andretti, and Andretti is indeed closing. This is the fight for second as they come for the checkered flag. Andretti closes up behind Teo Fabi. Can Teo hold him off? They have slower traffic just in front. Slower traffic just in front, but no. Teo Fabi holds him off, and Mario Andretti will finish in third. Teo Fabi comes across the line in second. So Michael Andretti has won the Michigan 500. He slows down now on his victory lap. His race is complete, and Michael is the winner. We'll be back in just a moment. There's Michael Andretti just moments ago as he acknowledged the fact that he is the winner of the Michigan 500. Now he is in the winner's circle. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Michael Andretti, congratulations. That was really a close one there. You had to work your work cut out for you.
What a day, I'll tell you. It was just, you know, a lot of errors in the beginning on my part. And, you know, the guys hung out in there and gave me great pit stops. And the car ran fantastic all day. Would have been a good fight with Rick if he wouldn't have had his problems up.
Now, a spin by you in the pits. What went through your mind when that happened?
Well, I thought I was going to hit Raul because I saw his guy waving him, you know, in. And I thought, oh, no, you know, repeat of Cleveland. So I tried to break the tires just to get out quicker, and I just lost it. And it was a dumb mistake, but it's all right.
It's all right for sure because he's in victory lane. He's won the Michigan 500 today, Paul Page.
And back-to-back wins for Michael Andretti. So now he is on a roll. Unofficial for the moment, but Michael Andretti is indeed the winner, followed by Fabi, Mario Andretti, Al Unser Jr. Derek Daly with a good run comes home in 5th place. Then Ari Lyondike, Rick Mears, Al Unser, Bobby Rahal, and Johnny Rutherford comes home in 10th. Emerson Fittipaldi will keep the points lead. Rick Mears had a great opportunity to move in and take it away from Emerson Fittipaldi, or at least challenge him. Aerial facilities provided by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. The car sits silent now after a 500-mile run at Michigan after it carried Michael Andretti to his second win.